Hey, everybody, this is Kenny. Welcome back to another edition of the Leading from the Middle podcast. This is the podcast for middle managers who want to develop themselves, develop their teams, and improve their results. So, leaders, what are 2 to 3 must have skills that you need to succeed today? How do you avoid competition? There's competition all around us. How do you avoid that? How do you really brand not only your business, but how do you brand yourself? How do you position your personal brand? I got to speak to just a phenomenal leader who is the senior executive and CEO of Idea Pros. He's also an entrepreneur and he's a strategic consultant, Fred Cary, who just has this amazing backstory that you have to listen to, but listen to the advice that he passes on to leaders. You don't want to miss a second. Let's get at it.
This episode is brought to you by Kitcaster. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. How do funded startup founders attract prospects and talent? Podcast interviews. How do entrepreneurs with exits find new deals? Podcast interviews. How do C-suite execs differentiate in crowded markets? Podcast interviews. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. Click the link in the show notes for a special offer. Celebrate good conversation.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Leading from the Middle podcast. I have got an unbelievable leader with me today that is going to give you just enormous advice on how you can advance your career and how you can just become a better leader every single day. I want to get right to him. This senior executive leader, entrepreneur, strategic consultant. He's the CEO of Idea Pros. But boy, oh boy, wait till you hear his story. Fred Cary is with me today. Fred, how are you? It is so great to have you.
Hey, it's lovely to be here. I'm really excited to get to talk to you and your audience, and hopefully we'll get some good advice out there that people can take to the bank.
Oh, that is awesome, Fred. Thank you so much. Fred, I've got to start with your backstory because as we were talking before we came on, 400 companies now, 400 startups, unbelievable. So, but you've been inspired to help others, and I really want to hear your backstory on how you got to where you are and what's inspiring you to do the things you're doing today.
Yeah, we all start on our own journeys in our own way, and we often don't know where we want to end up, or maybe we do know where we want to end up, but we don't know the road to get there. And the road that I've taken to get there, if you will, has been a twisty, windy one. I've had companies in every sector you can, well, not every sector you can imagine, but probably 10 different sectors. And as you said, I now have about 400 companies that I have 30% control of, each of them that we're growing up. And we have, out of that 400, we have about 24 real rock stars already, and more are on their way. They're putting on their outfits and getting their guitars. So this journey, like everybody who happens to be listening, is very unique to me, and everybody has their own story to tell. But I would say whatever story you have to tell, the way to tell it is to keep control of the pen and keep control of the paper, and you write your own story. Don't let anybody else do that for you. Maybe today we're going to focus in on how to make sure that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. No question. Fred, what would you say would be, as you were on that twisty road, what would be a couple of lessons that you learned along the way that you'd like to pass on to others?
Yeah, the biggest lesson you learn is life's not a freeway. And when we talked about the twisty road, you have a path of where you want to go, and to get there. And I don't know if you're going to have any video, but for your audio audience,
Yeah, we've got
I was
video.
holding two hands straight and one in front of the other. And the reality is, it's a twisty, windy road to get to where you want to be, that is staring you at the face right in front of you. It's always a lot longer than you think it's going to be, and it's always a lot more twists and turns than you believe you're going to encounter. And so if you're prepared for that journey, if you understand that you have an objective and you just want to put your head down and take one step closer to that objective every day, you're going to get there, no matter what pivots you have to take, no matter what setbacks you get. As long as you keep your eye not on the ball. Keep your eye on where the ball is going to go, and that's where you're going to be able to make it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Fred, what would you say was one of your biggest challenges as you were again on that road? And what would you say is one of the biggest challenges that leaders face today?
Huh. People. For both one word. Next question. No, people is look. That's continually the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity. And so, if you don't manage your most valuable resource, which is your people, then you're never going to achieve the things you want to achieve. And you indicated that most of your audience is kind of middle management, either trying to build up their career there or trying to work their way to the C-suite. And you need to understand that if you want to transform from a manager to a leader, you look at the people that you have working for you, that under your tutelage. Are you just telling them what they need to be doing? Are you nurturing them, growing them, knowing that when they leave at the end of the day, they still see you at your desk and you're there in the morning before they get there? You know, the biggest thing is enabling, empowering, and advancing the people below you. And when people that are below and above is probably terms that are antiquated nowadays, but I'm 73, so I can speak old man. So just look below you and look above you, and act to the people below you the way you want people above you to act towards you. And if you can do that, if you can manage your people, you're going to be a lot better off, and you're going to be climbing that ladder a lot faster. And when you have something bad below you, and this is big problem with me, this is one of the big issues, my long-winded way to get to your question. Historically, I've been really slow to let go of someone. And there are cases where you just have to do it. You know, when you have somebody that's saying one thing to you and then that doesn't ever happen, or then they say it again and something completely different happens. When you are involved in a situation where somebody is poisoning the well, because that's what they're doing underneath the surface, you got to remove them, because if you don't, that's going to spread from one person to 5 to 20 to your entire organization over time. It's like a virus, and the biggest lesson I learned historically is to get rid of that virus a lot sooner than I typically do.
Yeah, that is priceless advice. And I love how you just answered the one word. You said people. That was the first thing that came to your head, which shows also the care that you have for your people, the nurturing that you have for it is great. Let's shift over to leadership a little bit, Fred. And how does a leader turn some of the ideas? Because there's ideas all over in the air, or come to people, or how do they turn those ideas into actual action? How does a leader do that?
Leader has to come up with really good ideas, surround themselves with really good people, and arm them with what they're going to need to perform, and then get the hell out of the way. That's what leadership's all about. Empowerment and support. If you can do that, you can be a really good leader. If you want to micromanage everything, if you go into a conference room and you're the first one to talk, everybody's going to follow what you say. If you go in a conference room and you're the last one to talk, you're going to get tons of valuable information, and you're going to grow your company much faster and much better, because you're involving all the brilliant brains around you. You can't do everything. Speak last and really support people.
Wow, I love that. Fred, you've seen a lot of change over the years in business. What would you say are some things that leaders really need to equip themselves to adapt to changes that are inevitably going to happen in the workplace?
Changes are happening at a rate that has never existed before. I remember when I got my first beeper, and I'd be driving in my car, my beeper would go off. I know who was calling me. It was the office. They're the only one that could sound that beeper off. I'd grab my roll of quarters, stop at the nearest 7-Eleven, and make a phone call and see what the heck was going on. Since that moment in time, the evolution that has taken place with technology has been astronomical. We've probably accomplished more in the last 30 years, or changed more, and had the world turn upside down many more times in 30 years than we probably have had in almost the whole history of the world.
No doubt.
So today's leaders, today's companies need to be able to adapt. They need to be on the forefront of change. They need to have their pulse on change. You know, AI, for example. Before October of last year, nobody even knew how to spell AI. And now, you know, it became what we call a black swan event. All of a sudden it's there, you didn't expect it, and then you wondered how the hell you could have ever lived without it. So when those types of things happen, you got to jump on board. You know, there's a lot of hype around AI too. Everybody wants to have AI in their name now, and most of those companies are going to fail. But the reality is that the fundamental changes that are taking place in the way that you conduct business through the use of these types of extraordinary tools is going to separate the leading companies from the laggards. You don't want to be a laggard. So the best thing that you can do as an organization, keep your eye, as I said earlier, ahead of where that ball is. You don't want to keep your eye on the ball. Forget about keeping your eye on the ball. Keep your eye on where the ball is going, and be able to go there before anybody else, and you're going to be ahead of the game every time.
That is great advice, and that's a shift in thinking, because we're always taught that, right? Oh, keep your eye on the ball, keep your eye on the ball. No, stay ahead of it. I love that. I love that. And AI, that's such a great example. You talk a lot about avoiding the competition. How do you do that?
You differentiate yourself. First of all, let me take a step back. I've had so many, you can imagine, I have 400 companies below me. And when I say companies, that's an exaggeration, because a lot of them it happens to be one person who I'm building up, and then we're creating our company. They're going to be creating this stuff, but it's the same amount of work. And I have a lot of them that will come in and they'll say, how do I keep competition from entering the space I'm in? And my answer is, I have a really crappy idea that nobody wants. That's how you do it. You know, if you're in a marketplace where you're the only competitor, that means you will probably be one of those people that represent the greatest failure point for new businesses in America. And that is, an entrepreneur has created a business that there's no demand for. So you can't avoid your competitors, but you can stay ahead of your competitors. And you stay ahead of your competitors by differentiating yourself, by keeping an eye on the pulse of what they're doing well and what they're doing poorly, and make the poor things they do your best things. So when people come to me with a new business and they say, hey, I want to come in, I'm going to revolutionize this industry, I say, get the hell out of my office. You don't want to pay for revolution. You want to pay for evolution, right? So if you have an industry that has proven itself, that has 3 or 4 players in there that are doing 3 out of 4 things really well, and the audience is clamoring for that 4th thing, well, you're the 4th thing. You know, look at what's going on, look at a growing marketplace, look at the opportunities in that marketplace, and latch onto that opportunity. Now, not only are you taking all the 1-star reviews that your competitors have because they don't have that 4th thing, now you're saying, hey, I'm the 4th thing guy. And by the way, I also have the other 3 things these guys have. And so now I got 4 things, including the one you, Mr. Customer or Mrs. Customer, really, really need. And so that's how you really get ahead of the game. And you have to pay attention. You know, if you start getting bad reviews yourself, is there any consistency? Is there something going on? Is there something wrong there? Is there something I need to change? Be ahead of the curve, be ahead of your competitors, change yourself, name yourself differently, position yourself differently, be the Apple to the IBM, be the Virgin Airlines to British Air. You know, distinguish yourself in your naming, your branding, your positioning, and your efforts. That's it.
Yeah, I really love that. And I see that's where a lot of leaders and a lot of companies really struggle, you know, that, you know, they may look at the competition and say they just want to match it. And I love that you said, don't revolutionize, evolution is definitely better. That was great advice. I want to go down the road of branding. You said that there at the end. How important is that for businesses? And then how important is it for your personal self to personally brand yourself?
Yeah, look, you and I can spend an hour talking to each other, and we're going to have a fairly good sense of who we are, what we're all about. The essence of us comes out in our dialogue and our conversation. We sat around and had a beer, a glass of wine, or my favorite, an old fashioned, we'd know ourselves even better because we'd lay back and we'd talk, we open ourselves up and we talk. The company needs to be able to do that because nobody knows who the hell this company is. And the way that you present your persona is through your branding and through consistency in the interaction with your customer. And Apple is a prime example, right? Apple starts with their why. And I can't take credit for that. A much better speaker than me talked about Apple being different from others because they start with their why, what they're all about, and then they go outward. This at the end, it's we happen to sell computers. You want to buy one instead of starting with most companies do. Hey, we sell computers. What are we all about? What's our persona? What's our value proposition? How are we engaging with our audience? How are we making them feel that we're different? And I can tell you this. Right now, I'm going to make a special announcement. Tomorrow morning, Apple Computers is releasing their first electric toothbrush. Now, that's complete bullshit. That's not true at all. But we all know what that toothbrush is going to be, right? It's going to be sleek. It's going to have a few cool colors. Yeah. It's probably going to break when you drop it because of the glass. And it's going to have advanced technology. It's going to tell you if you're brushing too hard, too long, too short, when it's time to change your brush head. We know all of that, and they're hopefully not going to be inventing a toothbrush. If they are, I want a royalty. But we know what that new product that doesn't exist is going to be before they even think about creating it, because we know who they are as a person, a corporate person. That's how strong brand identity is. And that's why the Apple logo alone is probably worth $1 trillion.
Yeah. And that all makes so much sense for the leader that struggles with, hey, I'm trying to figure out who I actually am. And if you just bring it back to the basics, I love that you said, just have conversations and just talk to people. And that's where you're going to develop who you actually are. I love that. Fred, where do you see, what would be, I know you said people, and I 100% agree with that. What would be maybe 2 or 3 other skills that you see leaders have to have going forward?
Well, a fundamental skill that a leader or any CEO of a company, and there's several CEOs that I would not call leaders, but a fundamental skill you need to have as a leader is don't run out of money. That's the very first thing, because when you run out of money, everything else crumbles. And by the way, we're out raising capital right now. So we don't run out of money because of our inflection point in our growth has gotten such. And listen, future leaders and middle market managers, if you grow too successfully, your cash flow is not going to be able to keep up with your growth. So you have 2 choices. You either can stunt that growth so that you can manage the cash flow. What do I mean by that? If we're making $1,000 this week, we're making $2,000 next week and $7,000 the week after that. We're doing really well, but we're only getting last week's cash coming in. So we can't support that growth by the new tools, the new equipment, the new services, the new things that we have to support this continuing growth. So you either have to slow down the growth or else go out and raise capital. So that in today's market, any CEO needs to be a financial CEO. Any leader needs to be a financial leader. You have to keep your eye on the money, because the money is the fuel for this enormous growth that technology enables that we didn't have before. So that's the number one thing. And the number 2 thing as a leader is again enabling and getting out of the way. The best leaders are also great followers.
Wow.
If you can't be a follower, if your whatever doesn't stink, you're not going to get the best out of the amazing people that you have brought into the fold. You got to let them grow. You got to nurture them, and the best way to do that is by being a listener too. And for somebody who wants to figure out who the hell they are, ask your team. Send out a survey. Your survey is one question: who am I? Find out who everybody thinks you are, because it's the same thing as a company brand, right? When you think of a company brand and you think, well, this is what we are, this is what we do, this is what we're all about, this is what we're going to project to our audience. None of that's your company brand. Your company brand is what your audience thinks you are, right? So you have to transcend the internal and go to the external. So if you're an individual, who am I? Who you are is who the collective humans around you think you are, not what you think you are, not how you reassure yourself when you look in the mirror in the morning. It's when you go to work and you sit down and you engage and interact with people, who you are is who they perceive you to be. And so the more you can understand that, the more work you can do towards that, the better off you're going to be, not only in the workplace, but when you step home at the end of the evening and you're dealing with your wife or your husband and your kids and your dog and the neighbors, the more you have that self perception by listening and being a follower, the better you're going to be as a leader and as a human being.
So great leaders have to be great followers as well. Wow, that is priceless advice. And Fred, as you were talking, I was thinking about any motivational speakers, and I've long since stopped doing that, but I can remember as a young up and coming leader, I'd go see a Tony Robbins, and no knock on him or anything like that. But one of the things they would tell you, oh, you have to look in the mirror and tell yourself, hey, and I love what you say. And a lot of leaders don't get that. It's the opposite. Just ask your people, who am I? Who am I? Absolutely.
So those motivational speakers, by the way, and they're making a shit ton of money. So who am I to argue?
Exactly.
But most of them are wrong. Most of them are wrong. They can teach you how to be a bully, and they can teach you how to get money at any cost, for the most part. And that's probably an unfair statement, but it's all about that self-reflection and looking in the mirror. You can do anything. The self-empowerment is great, but the core of who you are as a human being is the most important thing that's going to help you build better companies and have better relationships and have a better life. And if you need to go outside of your inside to get the answer to those things.
Yeah. And that's so well put. And you summed up emotional intelligence in such a great way there. That's been such a buzzword, two words over the last 10 years or so. But you summed it up with the listening and really the self-reflection there. Fred, this has been amazing. I can't thank you enough. I don't want to end until I ask you this question. And that is, how can people contact you and get to work with you?
Well, number one, if anybody has and my executive assistant hates this part when I say this, but if you have a problem, you have an issue, you want to learn something and you don't want to just say hi, you can actually just write to me, fred@ideapros.com, and I'll try to steer you in the right direction for anything you might have a question about. But if you want to get some good inspiration on leadership, on personal development, doing the right thing, being the right kind of person, you can follow me on Instagram. It's official Fred Cary, Cary. I have about 500,000 followers on there every day. And well, they're not there every day, but they're there when I look at how many followers I have. I don't know what percentage of them looks at my daily posts, but they're there. They're for you. They're for free, and I encourage you to go there. Also, if you're in the middle market and you're trying to excel and get ahead, there's invaluable, again, free advice on ideapros.com/blog, or just look for our blog. I'm really proud of that thing, and I don't have any right to be proud of it. I did all the content for it, but just in speaking like this, and my team put it all together, indexed it, table of contents by subject matter. You learn how to raise money, learn how to deal with employees, learn marketing tips, literally how to manufacture, how to engineer, how to build an app. Anything you want to learn about, it's in there, it's indexed, and there's both the written part of it, and with every single one of those items is about a 20 to 30 minute show that addresses that subject. Again, all free and all good for you. Here's something that's not free though. If you go on my Instagram page and my link tree, you'll see there's several different things in there. Some of them are free, and some, like my courses on purpose-driven entrepreneurship, which I encourage everybody to take. There's a a code. It says IG100, and it gets you $100 off. So it's like $147 for 15 modules.
Wow.
If you take those 15 modules, you're going to be a better leader. You're going to be a better manager, and you're going to be a better human being, because it's all on purpose-driven entrepreneurship. So whether you're going to run off and do your own thing or not, I think it's really valuable. And if it's not, write to Fred at Idea Pros, and I'll give you your money back.
Yeah. Wow. You stand by it. Fred, that's awesome. And I'll make sure all of that is in our show notes so that people can have access to it. I just want to throw in a plug for the blog, because I was able to go out there, and I have to tell you that you're being a little bit modest. That was you, man. Just getting to talk to you for this half hour. And then after reading your blog, it was a lot, but there's so much more out there. It's topics that are so relevant for leaders out there today. So I really, really encourage all the things you just said, but I can personally vouch for the blog out there, and I'll make sure that we have notes on that. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing, and for pouring out all of this great experience that you have and the success that you've had into others now. That is so special that you're doing that. And please, please, please continue to do that. We need you. We absolutely need you. You have such a unique perspective on leadership, especially leading people and being that. It's just the core of you, so thank you so much for that. And thank you for being so generous with your time today.
Well, this has been a very interesting show, and you've asked all the right questions and really inspired me with a lot of my answers. So I appreciate you for that very much. And I'm going to be tuning in to hear what you have to say with other people as well.
Thank you, Fred. It's my pleasure. And we're going to leave it there, folks. This has been the Leading from the Middle podcast with Kenny and with Fred. We'll talk to you real soon.